Okay, so number 2, we're wanting to graph this function here. Again, it's exponential. X is in power. That makes this an exponential function because X is an exponent. He's a power. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to make a table. Start with an X value to make the power equal to 0. That just makes it easy. So let's go over here. Let's make a table like this. And I'm going to put in X and Y. And then I'm going to start. Now, what X value can you plug in here? What X value can you put right there that'll make that power 0? Well, 4, right? Got to do it with a pen here. 4. Plug in X is 4. What are you going to get? Well, Y will equal negative 1/4 to the 4 minus 4. Right? I put in 4 there. And so what is that? That's equal to negative 1/4 to 0. I made the power 0. Now, this is going to be negative 1. Do you see that it becomes negative 1? Now, you might say, wait a minute, you said it's always 1. Well, yeah, the power part is. The power part indeed did become negative 1. What am I talking about? Well, you got to be really clear what the power is. This 0 power has power over the 1/4 only. That this negative that's out front, he's not part of the power deal. Do you see that? So you got to be clear, who do powers have power over and who do they not? For example, when I go to watch one of my kids at a sporting event, soccer game, baseball game, I don't listen to what the coach says. I'm not on the team. I'm just sitting out in the stands, eating some snacks and watching the game. I don't obey the coach, whereas my kids obey the coach because they're on the team. So I'm not under the coach's power. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. This negative out front, he's just a spectator. He's not under the power of the 0. Why not? He's not in the parentheses. The 0 power right here only has power over what he's immediately next to, what's in the parentheses. And to that which he has power over, namely the 1/4, not the negative sign, he turns that into a 1. But the negative sitting in the front, he's just a spectator. He's just watching. He doesn't change into anything. He's still there. That's very important because if you change that into positive 1, you got the wrong graph. So does everybody see that? If you had negative 1/4 in the parentheses to 0, that would be positive 1. But if the negative is outside, let me put that over here and just leave it up. Yeah, let me do that. It's an important, that's the moral of the story here. Let me make sure that's clear. If you had negative 1/4 to the 0 power, that would be positive 1. But if you have the negative outside, that's negative 1, right? Because this negative is not under the power. So he's not affected by what the power does. He's just sitting there like I do at my kids' sporting events. I just sit there. I'm not running around. I'm not obeying the coach. I'm a spectator. See the difference? Be clear on that. And that goes not just for 0 power, but any power. Whenever you got powers, and that's what this chapter is all about. So this is very important in this chapter, is you got to be clear. Who does the power have power over? Only the thing immediately next to him, inside the parentheses, nothing else. So this remains negative 1. So put in 4, get negative 1. Let's go find that dot over 4 down 1. That's right here. There's that dot. Now what do we do from there? We add 1. Right, we go up by 1. So now we're going to plug in like a 5. Okay, what do we get when we plug in 5? I don't know. Let's come down here and see it. So y equals, again, negative 1/4 to the x minus 4, and we're plugging in now the 5. So we're going to get y equals negative. That negative in the front, remember, is a spectator. 5 minus 4, negative 1/4 to the 1. So it's just negative 1/4. So negative 1/4. Negative 1/4. Now that's going to be hard to graph. Where is that thing? Over 5, down 1/4. That's about right there. Isn't it? So that's the point. Over 5, it's just down a little bit, over 1/4. This one's the point, over 4, down 1. Right there. So now that point, probably you can't click that dot. You might be able to. I don't know if the graphing tool will let you. So if you get at something you don't like we just kind of got something we don't like. Let's do another. Instead, now subtract 1. We tried adding 1. That didn't really work out so good. Let's now try subtracting 1. So let's plug in 3. How about that? Let's plug in 3. And I'll see what I'll get. So I tried adding 1. So I started with 4, right? I started with 4 because that was the x value that made the power 0. That was nice, right? So that always works out pretty nicely. And then I tried adding 1. If that doesn't work out so well, and why I'm saying it didn't work out so well is because it became a fraction. I'd rather not deal with a fraction. So instead of adding 1, now try subtracting 1. It's always going to be one or the other. Either add 1 or subtract 1. So if I subtract 1, I plug in 3. Let me see, what am I going to do? I'll do that over here. So y equals negative 1/4 to the x minus 4. And I'm plugging in 3. So y will be minus 1/4 to the 3 minus 4. Y will be minus 1/4 to the negative 1. Now do you remember what a negative power does? It flips it. It's going to become 4 over 1, which is just negative. But that negative in the front is just sitting there. He's not doing anything but watching the sporting event. So negative 4 over 3 down from 2, 3, 4, right here. Over 3 down 4. Now, let me back up and explain. You might still be thinking, what just happened there? Negative powers, remember? Negative powers. Flip, remember, they're unhappy. It's really important in this section to know about negative powers. Flip to the other side, flip the whole fraction, then become positive. You really need to know that in this chapter. This chapter is all about powers. And so you got to be clear that a 0 power is 1, and a negative power on something flips it, and then it becomes positive. You got to know those 2 rules for powers. We're going to use them a ton. So one more time, anything to the 0 power is 1. And anything to a negative power, remember, he's negative, he's unhappy. He's like somebody is at a job, he's unhappy, he wants to jump to a new job, and then he's happy. So the negative power means he's unhappy where he's at in the fraction. He wants to jump to the other side, then he becomes positive and happy. So when that negative power is on a whole fraction, like it is right here, that negative 1 is on the 1/4, it flips the whole fraction over, and then it becomes a positive 1. I didn't show that. After it flips, but 4 to the positive 1, that's just 4, doesn't do anything. And you might think, what about the negative? A lot of students get totally confused. I think, well, that negative up here is going to cancel that negative in the front. No way in the world. So very important. Those are 2 different worlds. Being in the power world is so different from being on the base level. Negatives in the power world, anything in the power world is totally different than being on the base level. You want to start thinking that way. That's what this chapter is all about, powers. So negatives in the power zone do not at all cancel negatives in the front. Those are in 2 totally different worlds. The negative in the front is just sitting there watching the ball game. The negative on the power, he has power. He makes the whole fraction flip, and then it becomes positive. So negative powers are unhappy. They make everything flip. Then they're positive. Then they're happy. So negative 4 over 1 is just negative 4. So there's our graph. I could do it now. So the graph is going to basically go like this. It's going to go, what is it going to do? It's going to go like that. And yeah, it's just going to go through these dots like that. So you just need to put 2 dots on the graph for it to work. And so for sure, it'll take this one right here and this one right here. 4, -1, and 3, -4. Just click those 2 dots, it'll make the graph. So again, how did I make this exponential graph? You make a table, you start with the x value to make the power 0. So that was 4 in my case. Power was 0, anything to 0 power is 1, but the negative in the front stays. 4, -1, there's that dot. Then I usually add 1. I tried adding 1, got 5, plugged in the 5 right here. That came out -1/4. That's okay. I mean, that is on the graph, but it's a fraction is hard to graph. It probably won't let you graph it on the graphing tool on the homework problem. So instead, I said, well, instead of adding 1, let's subtract 1 from the original 4. It's all based on the original 4, which made the power 0. I tried adding 1 to 5. Now subtract 1 to 3. Plug that in right here. Got -1 power. That flips the fraction, then becomes positive. The negative in the front just sits there, -4. So 3, -4. There it is. There's our exponential graph.